In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to directly target files with using DMDE with HDDSuperClone. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. I'm just going to call it project.log. I'm going to start the virtual disk driver right now because I know we're going to be using it. Drives connected. I'm going to use direct AHCI for this. Choose my source. Choose the destination of an image file, which I'm going to create, which is going to be image.dd. Now I'm going to do connect. I'm going to turn the slow driver off. I'm going to go for virtual mode 1. So we're starting, going to use the virtual driver. Mode 1, remember from other videos, show it performs all of the steps, including trimming and scraping for every read as you go along, so that all data is, or the best amount of data is read as you go instead of waiting until later. I'm going to click start. So now that we see our runtimes going, we know the virtual driver is running. Now I'm going to start DMDE. I'm going to drag it over here so it's out of the way. As you know, /device/SDV is the default virtual disk that is presented to the OS from HDDSuperClone, so that's one we choose. We just click it once to select it. We're going to change the parameters. Now, if you don't select it first and you change the parameters and click OK, it'll jump onto whatever drive it was selected up here, which you don't want. So you highlight it first, then do parameters, I/O errors. You want to always ignore I/O errors. I like to choose a fill of zeros just because I don't want that pattern, random pattern. So now it's partition searching. And this drive has a weak head, so there's a lot of small read errors all the way through one of the heads. It's a 2-head drive. There's little errors all the way through the master file table also. So this drive is a fair example to work with. Okay, so now it's done the partition searching. We've got our biggest partition here, which is the one we know we want to recover from. So we'll select that. We're going to click open volume. Like before, we're going to go for some user data. I believe this is what I chose before because it's not too big. So previously in another video I showed how we would extract that. Right now what we're going to do this time, we can right click on it or click up here and get to our recover option. So we're going to go with I'm going to change, I want to actually put instead of trying to recover at this point in time, I'm going to go to list. We go to sector list. I'm going to change where that's going because I don't like where it's going. That's where I want it to go. It's called file list.txt. We're going to change this. This is important for the import into HDDSuperClone. This needs to be bytes, not sectors. So at this point in time, we don't want to add any other data to the file, so we're going to click OK. Now, what this is doing right now, and you can see by this file 0 right here, it is reading file. Oh, it's reading indexes too. It's reading all the data that it needs. Oop, error opening, and I didn't change something. We're going to say skip all, but we're also going to go to action. Oh, it doesn't give me another action. Well, we're going to skip all. And you might be able to hear my dog barking from outside. I'm not sure how long. Oh, it didn't take that long. So, failed opening directories files. So, those two files that it failed to open were probably from errors in the MFT or wherever it was trying. If there was another data run someplace else in another index file where it couldn't. It's not that it couldn't read the file, it's basically it couldn't find the file to read it. At least that is my understanding of how that works. So we're going to click OK. Well, look, size is 220 megabytes. So we click OK. Now, what we have is, if we go to our folder here, you can see we have a file called filelist.txt. Let's open that real quick. You can see that's the position, that's the amount of data. This is all in bytes, so that's the position on the disk in bytes. That is the size of the read. This is all in relation to the beginning of the disk, even though it didn't say that in DMDE. I have found out that it is in relation to the beginning of the disk, which works out very well for us. Alright, so now that we've got this file list, we can close that. We don't need it anymore. We can actually close DMDE because we're going to switch back to clone mode, and once you stop the virtual disk driver, you have to close and reopen DMDE to find the drive anyway. So we're going to quit, yes. So we're going to back here, and we can see our domain size is 50,000 plus sectors, 0.03 gigabytes. That's what it read. The amount of data that it needed to read to get what it's got so far. So I'm going to click stop. I'm going to click clone mode right now just because that's what we're going to go to, and if I don't click it right now it won't show immediately when I do this. So I'm going to disconnect because you have to disconnect before you can add to the domain or do anything with the domain. So I'm going to click this option, add to domain from DMDE bytes file, which will work with the file that we just had. And what it will do is it will add that information to our current domain. So we're going to make sure we find the right one. File list.txt. Now we've added it. You can see we just jumped up to 481,000 sectors, 0.25 gigabytes of data. So now, with whatever our settings are currently, whatever our clone settings are, and I haven't changed anything for this run, I'm leaving it at default for right now. This will now, when I connect, and I'm in clone mode, connect and click start, this will start the recovery attempt going sequentially instead of like previously. If I were to use DMDE to try and extract files directly while running in virtual disk mode, it would have jumped around and tried, as it found the files in different places. This is going to sequentially go through all the different phases. You can see there's skips already, there's non-trimmed, so it's doing its jumps. This is a good way to, so we've targeted the data, it's only going for the data that's that we've selected for the files that we want, but it's going to go in sequential order, and it's going to go through all the phases, so it's going to try and get the most good data first without jumping all over the place, which is beneficial for the health of the drive and to get the most good data first. Okay, as if to give me a sign to say that I shouldn't really be thrashing my test drive too much, it hung on me a few times, which is never done before. It required a power cycle and made some really nasty clicking noises getting towards the end of these non-scraped. So that's just an indication of how important it is to try and do things this way, try and get the most good data first, because it can die at any time. I've thrashed this drive for a long time, many times over, and it's now telling me that I've punished it maybe a little bit too much. So Normally, so I'm in my stop clone mode. Normally, I would switch to virtual mode 1, which would maybe possibly try to read more from the disk. It should not try to read any more from the disk for what I'm going to try to do, but for right now, I'm actually going to switch to virtual mode 4. Virtual mode 4. I can almost talk. Which only reads from the destination. It does not try to read anything from the source. I'm only doing this right now because I'm trying to save my test drive. Normally, you'd want to switch to virtual mode 1 just in case there was any data it wants to try to read again. So I'm going to go back and start DMDE. Oops, I forgot to click start over here. It's not the first time that's happened. Okay, so now we're running again, so we're going to go back, select this task. So just choose the device. The parameters, we're always going to go right straight for ignore I/O errors, always. And like I said, I always like to change that for the fills to be zeros. So now we got our partition is back, because now it's reading data from the destination, so everything's fast right now. Click or select that, open volume. We're going to make sure to only open the same places that we did before so it doesn't try to read from some place it hasn't already. Users, pictures, not real. Alright, I'm pretty sure that's what we chose before. Yes, it is. So now, instead of going for the list, we're going to try to do a recovery. And this is where we're going to hit options, I/O parameters. We're going to make sure that that's still checked. Always ignore I/O errors, and it is. So we're good there. Event handler. Failed to open file. That more or less means it failed to be able to read the file. Not necessarily because it had bad sectors, but because it just couldn't locate the file. There was an error in the file system that it couldn't access it. So we're going to skip that, and then an error reading the file. We're going to say move to bad, so that way it'll move it to a folder called bad, so we'll know which files were not recovered correctly, that had errors in them. So we'll click OK. We'll go back to source and destination so we can click OK. We're going to click OK. Actually, I think that's where I want it to go, surprisingly. And you see how fast this is. That read all the data from the destination. You can see we have 2 files that just couldn't be accessed at all. So those are probably from MFT errors. We have 143 files that were bad, and then total files recovered. I don't know why there's a plus sign there, but anyway, so we click OK. Now, we've recovered those files. If we go to our folder, we have a folder called Miscellaneous Anime, which is what we recovered. So these are all the files that were recovered, and you can see they all look like they were recovered successfully. We go back to the bad list. We can see that obviously the JPEGs are kind of messed up, but hey, here's a bitmap. See a little line here. There's a bad sector. That's where that file didn't read. Here's another one right here. You see a line up here. That's where that bad sector in the file. These other JPEGs are obviously PNG, whatever. The other files that they won't open because there's enough damage to them in some way or another that it corrupts them. But anyway, this is the best way to perform data extraction, or should I say data targeting, where you get the list of the files, then you download the file list and the sector list in bytes, then you import that, add that to the domain, I should say, in HDDSuperClone, and then you use HDDSuperClone in the clone mode to recover the targeted data, and then once you have that recovered as good as possible, then you can go back and reopen DMDE and actually do a file recovery of those files. So now, before my drive dies, hopefully, I'm going to switch this back to virtual mode 1, and we're going to hope it'll read and not die too many times here. Now I'm going to show you, if you want to target all of the data, all of the used space on the disk, which means all of the used clusters, you can go to Tools, DMDE, and you want a cluster map report. And you click on that, and it'll say file it hasn't been loaded. Do you wish to load it? Well, yes, I do. So here we go. We're going to load it, and what this is going to do, and it's thrashing the disk. That doesn't sound good at all. It's going to try to read the MFT, or as much of it as it can. You can see headers and MFT are always file 0, so it's trying to read the MFT as best it can right now, and it's getting it while it's doing that. It's reading the file system. It's getting a list of all of the clusters in use by every file and folder and anything in the MFT, depending on if you chose some different options there at the previous screen. So we're going to let this run and hopefully see what it does, and hopefully it has some success and doesn't completely kill the drive like it sounds like it's doing right now. Okay, the rescue finished. I don't know, I clicked OK on the message. I thought it had, I don't know if it had died or what, but anyway, this box came up. I'm going to show you what you need to do here at this point in time, assuming that it successfully finished. I don't like where that's going, so I'm going to change it. I'll take the name, clusterlist.txt. That's where we're going to save it. This is important. You need to select in bytes from the disk start. If you do not select that, you will not get the proper data to import into HDDSuperClone. So we need to make sure we check in bytes from the disk start. And we're saving it there, so I'm going to click OK. Now it has saved a file named clusterlist.txt. How big is it? 662 kilobytes. So it's going to be a big long list of all the clusters that are used in that partition that we just selected. Now we can stop DMDE. Do I just quit? Yes. At which point in time we're going to come back to HDDSuperClone. We're going to go into, okay, the drive's not locked up, so it must have actually finished. So we're going to switch back to clone mode now, just so we can see it happen in real time. If you have it in one of the virtual modes, actually, if you have it one of the, let me show you. If you have it one of the virtual modes, that means the domain is not actually currently active. If you try to add, you will get a, oh, you must disconnect first. You should get an error that says domain is not active or no domain file loaded. Well, the domain file has been loaded, but anyway, we need to switch to clone mode, disconnect again. Then we're going to add to domain from DMDE bytes file. We are going to find that cluster list that we just did. Open that. Why is it not doing anything? Oh, it took a while to process. It was a pretty big list. So as you can see, out of the 160 gigabyte drive, only about half of it is used. Well, less than half, 49.5 gig is used. Not exactly sure how accurate that is considering the condition of the drive right now. But that right there gives you a target of 49 gig of used data. I am not going to proceed any farther because I think I am killing my prize test drive. It's giving some death thralls recently here. So anyway, that is how to target file data, and here at the end, target the actual, once you've targeted the most important files, and you can go and say, okay, I want to target the rest of the, all used space, and then in the next phase, I say after we were done with let's say if we click connect and start and we let it run all the way through everything, then it got done with that. If you wanted to then go further on, in case you needed to do a raw recovery, trying to get some files that may have been missed because the file table was screwed up, maybe you could still find the files in a raw recovery, at which point in time you would go to file and you would clear the domain. And what clearing the domain will do, it clears out the name of the file, so it is no longer related to a domain file here. It erases it, takes the domain out of the picture, so the domain is no longer active, which means you see your domain size is exactly the same as your LBA to read, which means it would now be targeting the entire disk. So if after you finished recovering the used space, then you still wanted to continue on and try to get the everything you could in case you have to do a raw recovery for some files, and you clear the domain and come back and then just do a connect and start, which, as I said, I am not going to do because this drive is about ready to die.